Hey everybody, I'm Tarek Merchant and this is the IMRecruitable show. I'm here today with LSU men's tennis coach, Chris Brandi.
How you doing, Tarek?
Good, how you doing?
Good,
Thanks
man.
for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Awesome. We are here at Kalamazoo and a lot of coaches here, scouting players. So this is an awesome opportunity for us to get lots of content and give players and parents that are going through this process a lot of advice and information. So I'm really excited to have you on here so you can share your thoughts with us. You've had a lot of success in your career so far. So let's just start off and get you to give a quick background about, your tennis background, where you started and how you got into college tennis and then the coaching career.
Sure. So I guess how I started tennis, I'm actually from a tennis family. My father was a college coach, so I grew up in that environment from day one as far as I can remember. He coached for, I think, 17 years in college. Wow. And then left college tennis when I graduated high school. I also have an uncle who was a very, very good coach, coached a lot of different professionals. I have a cousin who was top 30 in the world in women's tennis. So it was kind of natural that that's what I would fall into.
Where did your dad coach at?
He coached at the University of Florida back in the 80s through I think 2000. 2001 is when he finally retired, and then he just came back with me to LSU last year. So
awesome.
He's now back on the men's side here after almost 20 years.
Amazing.
So, yeah,
that's fun.
It's been a lot of fun, and it's not necessarily something we were looking to do, but I think we wanted to do it together, and we're having a blast. We're having
awesome.
a blast. Yeah.
And so where did you play college tennis at?
I actually went to Texas Christian University my freshman year, and then I transferred to the University of Florida and played there for 3 years. So
under your dad?
No,
he
was the women's coach, and he had left actually. So my college coach was Andy Jackson, who's now the head coach at Arkansas, and is a great guy, and was a great coach, and it was a great experience for me. Yeah. So it was, I've kind of seen many different sides of college tennis as going through with my family, my father, and then of course being recruited on my own, playing this tournament 20 years ago. I actually went to a different school. It didn't quite work out for me, and I decided to transfer, and I went through that process again. And but that time I didn't really kind of go through the recruiting process again. I kind of knew where I wanted to go, and it was more if they would take me, and they were kind enough to give me a chance, and it worked out pretty well actually. So awesome. It was a lot of fun.
Perfect. And so you have a really unique sort of situation. I mean, your dad coached college tennis. Yeah. So did you feel like, as you were growing up and as you played in college, that it was natural for you to say, I want to do the same thing, I want to be a college coach? Was that the first instinct?
I don't know if I wanted to be a college coach at that point, but I certainly remember being maybe 14 or 15 and telling my parents I wanted to coach, and I thought that was, when I got to a certain age, I started, playing these kind of tournaments, and at that time there were a lot of kids that were some of the best in the world. Many of them went on to be professional tennis players, and some won Grand Slams, and I kind of felt like I probably wasn't going to be that level, but I felt like I had a lot of knowledge in the sport, and I saw how much fun college tennis could be and what it gave people, and so I wanted to be a part of that. I didn't know if I wanted to coach college tennis at that point, but then when I went through it was a lot of fun, and still wasn't sure after I was done with that, but I did enjoy coaching and coached in the private sector for a little while, and then I ended up getting a college job, maybe 2 or 3 years out of college, and it's been great ever since. So
you love it, right?
Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
I want to talk about, you mentioned the transfer process. I'm a transfer kid as well. I played, when I came from Canada, I didn't even know if I wanted to play tennis. Even my last few years of high school, I took a different approach. I played, but not the only sport. Sure. And so, but I still had the skills to come down, but they were a little rusty. I played Division II at Western New Mexico, kind of like a last minute deal. And then I transferred because my situation was that I outgrew that school. I started to play really good tennis my freshman year, had way more wins than losses, beat some real top guys in Division II, and then had the opportunity to move up, to Jacksonville University in Florida, play at a Division I school. Had some injuries too, but what was the reason for your transfer, and was it a positive experience or not?
I a little similar to you. I would say I actually got injured maybe my senior year of high school. I had a senior or junior year of high school was like a stress fracture in my back, and it was one of those lingering things. We took 6 months before we could even kind of figure out what was going on.
Right.
And my level really dropped, right? Yeah. But I'd already kind of signed with a school, and they stuck with me more or less. But I really had gone down, right? And then I went to school, and I was thinking, okay, I'll figure this out. And as you know, the level's even higher there, and you got to really take it seriously. And I tried to, but I never really kind of gained my footing. And it was a good, team and a very good coach. And I just kind of, I felt like I needed more time, and I wasn't really ready. And my passion for the game went down a little bit because I think naturally
it's deflating when you have an injury. I had a serious shoulder injury.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as far as my arm goes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just it's still with me.
Yeah.
But it can really take an athlete right from a lot of confidence and interest to like, I can't play at the same level, and it's deflating, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, you have a certain trajectory, and I was actually one of those kids, I was getting better every year until I had that injury.
Right.
So I felt like, hey, I'm trending up, things are looking good, I'm starting to get in the mix with guys that I never was before, and then you get that injury, you've been working hard, and it really changes everything.
Yeah.
And you're young, and you don't really understand, hey, it's going to take a little time, and you don't think like that. You're thinking that moment,
you're in that moment.
So, it was a struggle for me, and it wasn't the school, I would say.
Yep.
I would say the coach at the time was a good family friend of ours. My father had actually coached him when he was a professional tennis player, so I've known him a long time.
Okay.
And he was a great coach, great guy. But I think, and I guess I can share this with you a little later, but I think my heart wasn't in that school from the get-go. I think I probably listened to other people's advice more than what my heart was telling me to do. Yeah. And that's one thing I would tell everybody to do is, this is the biggest decision most of these kids have ever made at this point, right?
Right.
So it's kind of like getting married to somebody. You want to listen to your friends' advice, you want to listen to your parents, but you have to go live it. You're going to go somewhere else. You're not going to live with your parents anymore. Your parents are not only going to tell your friends and their family, hey, he's going or she's going to XYZ place and they're loving it, but they're not going to go through it. You are.
Right.
And and I think kids often listen to their parents' advice, and they should, but it's still their decision, right?
Right. Or their friends and get influenced in different ways.
Exactly. And I think I don't regret any of that, but it's certainly something I think about today that, you have to make your own decisions in life, and you have to live with them, and while you should, take the consultation of friends and family, it's still your decision, right?
Right.
And I didn't understand that at that time, and but anyways, I got a second chance at the school I really wanted to be at. I had a lot of friends on the team, and it was really the school I always wanted to play for, right?
Yeah.
And it was an unreal experience. I actually had to redshirt a year, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me because I matured a lot. I healed from my injury. I was around a group of players and coaches that were totally invested, and I got so much better, and then I was a completely different guy, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people kind of forgot about me, and then I kind of came back and right off the bat had some success, and it was a fantastic experience that, like you
unbelievable.
I mean, share with people, and people don't really understand how much fun it is, and
until you actually do it.
Correct. Yeah. And it's I think college tennis is unique because it's not the same sport as if you're a football player or basketball player, it's the same format when you go to college. College tennis is completely different, and you finally get that team atmosphere, and you finally get that feeling of something that's larger than yourself, and it's a blast. I mean, I love it. I love the format. I love college tennis more than pro tennis or junior tennis or whatever, right? Like many people.
Yeah.
So I love trying to help kids through the process. Even, a lot of times we recruit a lot of kids, and like I shared with you the story, I mean, I try to be as honest with them as I can. A lot of times I see kids kind of choosing the wrong way. Even if it's like, hey, I kind of want to go to LSU, and I can say, look, honestly,
it may not be the fit.
I don't think it's the right fit,
That's honest.
And
you don't always get that.
Well, I mean, because you can tell pretty early on, I think, and you can see kind of mistakes that you've made or other people have made or other kids have made, and you want to get ahead of them, right?
Yeah.
And it's in the best interest of the kids. It's in the best interest of your program, and as coaches, you have a certain culture you want to cultivate and a certain environment that you think you need these people to fit into. And if it's not a fit, just like any relationship, it won't last, right?
That's right. It's a two-way street.
Yeah.
You know, it's to the interest of the coach as well to make sure that player coming in is going to be the right fit, and vice versa, because as you said, you really enjoy the experience and you really flourish, and your best tennis comes out, your best academics, your social life happens when you're in an environment that you absolutely love.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, I think that a lot of people take this transfer situation or think, well, I might have to transfer even if, you know, they have injuries or certain things, because they're not really ready to get to that school they want to, but to understand that it's not a failure, that it's actually, like when we talk about it now, both of us have a great story and we've learned so much. So I want to sort of transition and ask you, you know, how have all these experiences that you've had now allow you to run your program? Like what's unique about your program that you guys do, and what's your coaching philosophy?
Well, I think we've had a lot of different experiences. My father and I are a unique situation just from a coaching standpoint. We're the only father-son duo I can think of. And you know, from a philosophy standpoint, we're you know, he taught me everything I know. Of course, I have some ideas, but 99% of it's the same, right? So, you know, and I think from a personal level, he and I had a tough relationship when I was younger. He was always my coach. I struggled to kind of separate the coach from the father, and he was tough. You know, he was old school, and so I was maybe a little sensitive at the time, you know. And now it's nice to get to know him on a different level, right? But you know, I think you know, more than anything, kids, when they look at the school, they need to look at the coaches. They need to look at the guys on the team or girls on the team. They need to look at the school, because they're going to spend a lot of time around those teammates, around the coaches, at the university. So it's a big decision, and you know, oftentimes I'm not sure people put in as much thought as they should. I know I didn't, right? And I really wish I would have, right? Because it's not a fleeting you know, decision to make. I mean, it's for 4 years most of the time. It's building your network in the future, right? I mean, one thing I think we stand out is, I mean, you know, there's no reason to joke around here. LSU's not the highest ranked school in the country, right? But for us, you know, we need and want guys to do really well in school, just because it's another opportunity that you might have if you do well, right? Of course. You might have the opportunity to go to a good grad school. You might have more job opportunities. If you want to start a business on your own, you know, maybe your network's going to be stronger if your professors or, you know, classmates thought highly of you, right? So for us, it's not just really about the tennis, it's everything. I mean, we want these guys to go be successful in other areas. If they want to coach, great, or if they want to play tennis, great, but I just want to see winners in everything, right? And especially where we're at, where we're trying to build our culture. You know, I'm finding that oftentimes the guys that do well on the court are hard workers, and there's a reason why they're good on the courts, because they also do well in school and
everything else. And I'm a strong believer that it's the person that puts in the effort, and they get the most out of it. And you know, so you can go to Harvard, for example. You know, if you're talking about the name schools of academics and have the rigorous program, but if you don't put in any effort, if you don't utilize it for what it's worth, you know, you're not going to get very far. And you know, so I think whatever you put in, no matter what school you go to, because like I wasn't a great student. I was not at the big name schools that way, but I still had success on and off the court, because I worked hard and I did it my way. And you know, it doesn't always have to be with the books, right? So at tournaments, when you come to tournaments to scout players, can you walk me through the inside process, you know, of how you go from, okay, there's a big tournament coming up, there's going to be a lot of great players, who should I look at? Why should I be looking at them? When you come here and you actually scout them, what are you looking for? And then afterwards, what happens? Because you know, players come to tournaments all the time, and there's college coaches, right? Whether it's a college showcase or any exposure event, or whether it's a big tournament where there's coaches, and they're like, okay, they're there to, you know, there to play, and they hope that you're scouting them. But they don't know what's happening, like behind the scenes. They don't understand why you're looking at them or not. And then what happens? Are you going to contact me after? Or should I be contacting you?
Sure.
So can you talk a little bit about that process maybe that you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of kids, I mean, first things first, like you said, I think if you're one of the best kids in the country or the world, you will get recruited by the best schools.
Absolutely.
If you're not, I think a lot of kids kind of don't understand why they're not getting contacted by the schools they want. And I think it's just like anything else. I mean, the more aggressive you are as the kid, I mean, if you really want to go somewhere, you better show that you want to be there, right? It's just like if you have a business and you want a certain client, sometimes you got to knock down their door, and sometimes they're not ready for you, but if you keep showing that persistence, I mean, sometimes, that's an impressive sign to I think college coaches, right? So number one, I would recommend for every kid, when you're first starting out, maybe you're, a sophomore in high school and you're starting to think about colleges, get a list of maybe 20, 25 schools that you think would fit your, the profile of what you're looking for.
Right.
And then, every year you need to kind of cut it down a little bit, and then I think you need to go for it, and you need to really set a plan in motion, and you have to be realistic. I mean, if you want to play at a school that's a great academic school, you got to make sure you're meeting the mark in the academic area, right? Or if you want to play at one of the top 10 tennis programs in the country, I mean, you need to look and see what is the profile of the players currently on the team, right? And am I meeting that profile? Am I a little behind? And if you're a little behind, you should write the coach and say, look, I get it. I understand I'm maybe not quite what you want, but, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. I'm going to get there. I'd love to stay in touch with you, that kind of thing, right?
Yep.
But, I think as a college coach, like we had shared, I think it's important that the coach knows what kind of kids would flourish at their program and which kids would not, right? There's not a, there's a big draw, there's, 200 players in the 16s, 200 in the 18s, whatever, but not every kid is a fit for every school, right? And you need to be intelligent about what kids would be a good fit and what kids would be not. You need to get them on, you need to be upfront with them and honest, I think. But I think that the kids need to really do their homework. I mean, they're working hard on the tennis court, they're working hard in school. They need to really do their homework on the colleges and on the coaches and look at their background and look at the guys on the team. Hey, you know how it is. There's a lot of schools that are 100% American, or there's schools that most schools are probably a mix of some foreign guys, some American guys, and then a lot of times that within that mix there might be a lot of guys from Europe, or a lot of guys from Australia or South America. Is that something you'd be interested in being around, right? And again, the profile has to mesh well with you personally, right? And then on top of that, then the college coaches have their own kind of style, I would say, and that doesn't always mesh well with certain guys. And that's why you see, oftentimes a kid may choose a school and then he finds out that's not really the right fit and he didn't maybe excel as well as he would like, and then he goes somewhere else and he just flourishes, right? Because it just was the right place for him at the right time. And it doesn't mean one coach is worse than the other. They just have their own style, but there's a lot of opportunities out there. I just think, I think sometimes the kids need to take control of their process a little more.
So you're like looking for these kids. Like obviously you're building a list, right, of who you think based on the level that you need for your upcoming season or the few seasons, and you're coming to scout them, and then you're looking to learn about that to also weed off what might not be a good fit for your program and vice versa. They're weeding off what might not be. But you probably need the players' help initially to see who might be interested in your school.
Absolutely.
Like you want to know, like, okay, if that player writes me, a certain player, and says, I'm interested in LSU, and that player fits sort of your minimum sort of requirements initially, then at that point you have an idea that there is some interest on both sides, and then you'll start developing that, right? Because I think a lot of players would like to sit and wait for you, but really you guys need the help as much as possible, right? Because otherwise you're here and you might be scouting 5 kids that you see on a UTR or tennis recruiting level, just initially, or watching their sort of results, that they may be a possible contender to jump in my lineup. But you have no idea on the other stuff, right?
No, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely a two-way street.
Yeah,
and the coaches need to be doing their due diligence and reaching out with a wide net of kids they think might fit the profile, but that you don't really know yet because you haven't got to know them, you haven't talked with them oftentimes, and you need to go down the road with them and start with a phone call or email, and then maybe you talk to them after one of their tournaments, and of course too, some coaches value some things more than others, right? I mean, some certainly some coaches honestly look just off the ranking lists or whatever, and some of them look at different ranking lists, right? And some people go more off the recommendation of the coaches or their own players, right? Some coaches, see certain guys with they think a lot of talent and they think they can help develop them, and that's what they value more than maybe the ranking that day, right? Yeah. So I would say every coach is different.
Absolutely.
All the coaches are different. And even the really successful programs, they do things differently. They're not all the same, right? And but that kind of fits from their personality, and they run with what they know best, and that's why they're successful, right? Yeah. But I definitely think each process is unique, and but again, it's a big decision, and I hope people are really putting in the time and effort on their own end, and going out and figuring it out, because it's definitely a daunting task to go through.
I think the more educated you are, the earlier you start. Hopefully, this type of content and this information from you guys and our discussions here result in people understanding more about it and understanding that it's not just one thing. I asked you that question to sort of hoping to get that answer out of you, which was great, because that's what we always discuss is you're not just going to wait for the coach to send you an email or a message. You're going to reach out if you can. It's a two-way street. Each person got to hit each other up and find out if it's a match, and if it is, then to further progress, right?
Sure. I mean, I can tell I've given certain kids more chances than others that I thought were really persistent, and they were just doggedly going after you, and you're like, okay, fine. Maybe I need to take a closer look.
You want a player to come that wants to play for you in the program.
Sure.
I mean, right? Course. I mean, that is like they're just bleeding those colors in that school. I mean, that's what team sports is about. That's what college brings out. Yeah. And you see that all the time of the kids that really do well.
Sure.
So, let's say a kid comes up now, and they want to get one UTR level better, because that's the gauge that, for example, we're using now to initially evaluate. And of course, we know that's not the only tool in the assessment that you're making, but it gives you an idea, because as you mentioned, tennis is international sport. You want to know where everyone fits. How does a player get one UTR level better?
I mean, obviously, you're going to have to play better guys, and that sometimes is an issue a lot with, the UTR. I guess there's a lot of these American kids that maybe they only play in their region often, and honestly, they might be better than their UTR. And I think, most of the good college coaches, I think, look at, hey, what's kind of the schedule strength, right? Some kids might only be playing futures, for instance, and they might even have an inflated UTR, right? So, and the other thing about UTR, it's only, the last 30 matches or something like that.
Yeah,
so,
last 30.
There could be a kid who played really well 6 months ago, and he naturally has taken a dip for maybe he's injured a little bit, or maybe he's focused a little bit more on school. But, obviously, if you want to get better and you want to improve your ranking, you got to play better players, and you got to find out how to play them. You got to find out and go search them out, see what they're playing, and you've got to improve your game. I mean, the reality is it's not. I think too often kids now just I'm going to play every tournament, and that's important, no doubt about it. And competing and winning is honestly, that's the most important skill. But the best kids at this tournament or any tournament, they also have the best skills, I think, and so they put in a lot of time and effort. They've developed a lot of the shots that allow them to be some of the best guys, and then they also compete fantastically well, and so on and so forth. But you got to put in the work too. It's not. It kind of comes back to like what I mentioned, which is, don't wait for someone else to go recruit you. Go if you want to go somewhere, be dogged about that. If you want to improve your game, don't wait for some coach to teach you how to serve. Go figure it out, or seek out those kind of people, and really work on your game. Figure out what holes you might have, and what strengths you have, and improve those strengths, and work a little bit on your weaknesses too. But it's a long journey. So that was a long-winded answer.
Yeah, no, it's a tough one, because it's really what everybody's looking to do, right? I mean, everybody wants to get one level better at least. They want to keep jumping up, and as a measuring tool, that UTRs sort of put that out, because it's a compilation of how you compete in matches, and a compilation of how many, who you're playing against, how you're doing, what skills you're building, right?
But I think a lot of guys, everybody's a little different. Some kids maybe he hasn't developed physically yet, so maybe he just needs to get a little stronger, or maybe he's been a little injured, or maybe you need to work on your serve. Everybody's got their thing that they kind of know you need to work on, and that's maybe how you're going to get that extra level on UTR or whatever ranking you're interested in improving. So
awesome. What's your best college tennis memory? Start with as a player.
As a player, I can tell you my low point as a player was losing to Brett Ross at the Southern Intercollegiate in 2003.
By the way, Brett Ross is behind the camera there. Get in there, Brett.
That was actually my first match in Florida. I'll never forget it. And the B draw of the Southern Intercollegiate. No, but probably my best memory during my time at Florida as a player, we did something special at the time. I don't remember what it was, but we were one of the first teams at that time in a long time to beat Georgia at Georgia. We beat them in the semis of the SEC tournament. We had already won the SEC regular season, and the tournament was at Georgia, and we beat them 4-3. I think it came down to the last match, and it was a great environment. Of course, Georgia had all their fans, and that was the historic SEC program, and I can't remember if we had beaten. I think we had beaten them in the regular season, and then we went there and beat them at home. So it was an amazing accomplishment. And then of course we had to go on and win the finals, and we did. But it was that semis match that kind of set us apart. So that was awesome, and one I'll never forget. Mainly because it was against our big rival, and at that time our program was kind of taking the level jump every year, and it was a lot of fun, and something I'll never forget, definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And as a coach, in your career so far, what's been a highlight?
I would say, everything's a little different. I wouldn't say there's one thing that sticks out. I mean, I've been in a couple different programs that have won their conference, or even one year Wake Forest. We were, I think it was the first team to make the finals of the ACC tournament. It was kind of a big deal at the time, and I think more than that, the reason I love college tennis is just kind of see where these guys go, how they grow as people. I love to see them just succeed, whether it's in school or on the court, or if they want to coach, or if they want to play after, or if it's in business, or if they want to continue in law school or medical school. I just love to see and help them on the way to that. So, there's been some highlights, on the tennis court as a coach, but it's more just the day-to-day stuff. It's fun to really see these people mature, kind of like we both did it, at a different time, and just kind of help them on that process, and see where it leads them,
Awesome. What is the best piece of advice you could give to student athletes and their families going through the process?
I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier. It's a massive decision, right, for them at the time. Really do your homework, really do your due diligence. Don't make it fleeting, but also kind of trust your heart. Your heart kind of tells you, your gut kind of tells you sometimes, and kind of run with that. And then see if the logic lines up with the heart, right? And if you're really leaning one way, or if you really, you want to be around your friends on a certain team, a lot of times that's kind of a good decision, I think, because but you got to factor in everything. It's not just the coach, or it's not just your teammates. I mean, you're going to have to go to that school. You got to make sure the weather is something you can deal with. You got to make sure the academics are in line with what you want. You got to make sure that the culture of the program is what you're looking for. Because if it's not the right fit, it might drive you away, and it might, it may not be a good experience. And I can say college tennis is amazing. It's the best experience, I think, for tons of people. But when it's not the right experience, it's not a lot of fun, because it's a ton of work, and it's a big commitment. So make sure you do your homework. Make sure you're doing your due diligence. Talk to guys on the team or girls on the team that are currently there. Talk to former players if you can do that. Talk to normal students at that school, right? And feel them out, and see if that's a place you can really see yourself, even if the tennis fell apart, right? If you get injured, and would you want to stay there, right? Yeah. And I think that's something I don't think people really think too hard about, right? Certainly something I didn't factor in as hard as I probably should have, right, on the front end. But I think we all have our own path, and a lot of us might think we would do some things differently, but I think also you should enjoy it, because like playing in Kalamazoo is the coolest junior tournament in the world, in my opinion, and You need to enjoy it while you're out there, you know, and going through the recruiting process is fun, you know, and it's enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
Have some fun and enjoy it, because you'll never do it again, and you know, and you'll have fond memories of it in the end, right?
Great. Some awesome advice from Coach Chris Brandi, LSU men's tennis. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks,
Appreciate
man.
it.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.